though, is just minutes away, so we're going to take some time to show you guys what happened last night when Fusion took on Final 5.
Yeah, so this is basically a recap of what happened yesterday on the off-broadcasted games here. So they went in with actually good champion selects across the board here. We saw Team Final 5 go for this composition that has multi-threats on it, with Rux playing a supportive pick Morgana role. And then you saw Fusion go with this Neon Tonso center comp where they want to teleport and gank for him. And the Scion support from Trance, very risky.
It's really sexy having the Callista Scion together. You can throw in a tank support, which just gives you really crazy, incredible engages. And then Lulu's there to follow up, Rengar has follow up, Aurelia has follow up. You should theoretically have a good front line here. Yeah,
but they did pick it into a matchup first. Then Neon Tonso locked in that Callista, and they punished it with a Graves and a Janna. That's how you beat Callista in lane, is auto-attack trade her with the passive from Graves and the shields from Janna. They were in a really good spot, and then they got Heaven Time to dive on top of that. So they were really countering what Neon Tonso was building there, Final 5. But that's enough of champions. Like, let's get right into this game with some highlights.
So the interesting thing is, it's Neon, so they're going to use TP gank to try to get him ahead, right? They want to keep down Veritas. Problem is, look where Rengar is in the map. He's in the top left corner, so Fusion have at best a 3v3 turned into a 3v4.
But I love this. Veritas and Rule 18 immediately go up towards the jungle, and Heaven Time is there for the counter gank. And Rux immediately starts his TP to continue this fight after they pick up Chunky Fresh off the TP.
And it was smart of Chunky Fresh to run up and right afterwards, try to pull the team away, because he wanted to spread the team out, but guess what? Veritas shows up anyway, gets the kill under the turret, and that just starts the Graves domination.
Yeah, and you can see more of the Graves domination here. By this point, he was 5-1-2, but Trance doing his best Moses impression there. Parts the team and ends up on the wrong side of the Azir turret for an easy pickup.
I'm just surprised they engaged against an Azir turret here, but it wasn't all downhill. Fusion were able to find some good fights. Final 5 really over dive here, where they're missing their fed AD carry in this battle.
Yeah, Trance once again missing an ultimate there, but look at this. Neon Tonso sucks him in and throws him straight through the wall to continue the engage.
Yeah, Scion getting a Malphite ultimate. Who would have thought that'd be pretty strong?
Yeah, there's a reason he doesn't have that skill. Wait, he kind of does.
It's a skill shot. Less so.
Anyway, that looked like a fight that Fusion was going to start to get back into the game, but once again, Trance going really hard and missing another Scion ultimate. And he's the support Scion. He doesn't have the gold to follow this up. And then again, thrown straight through the Azir wall to continue this engage. But by this point, they have multi-threat here with Veritas' Graves and Gate just outputting so much damage in this fight. They are unchecked.
And poor Trance got pushed from the Janna ult over the Azir wall and pushed farther back by the soldiers. You can see the disengage power of Final 5 quite strong. Veritas 7-1-3, 7-1-4 now at this point. You feel for him, he's going to win you the game.
Yeah, Veritas is an extremely good player. Mechanically sound. He is #1 in Challenger right now by about 300 points. First Challenger in North America, and he's showing his mechanical prowess here, where he is the main target and just kites them around in circles on Graves.
He's the reigning Oceanic champion. This guy is the real deal. And it's going to be a player that's going to be fun to watch. This was, of course, Final 5's game, and we'll see this rematch, of course, in just a few minutes.
And Fusion came into this, and I have a quote from it. I'd be surprised with anything besides very dominant victories over Final 5 this week from one of their 4 coaches.
Wow. Ended up not being the case here. A pretty close game despite a couple of misfires early on. A couple team fights back and forth, but clearly Final 5 looked very good in this new lineup.
Yeah, Veritas being involved in 15 of the 16 kills and really carrying this game. Gate played a consistent mid laner and became that secondary threat. So even if Veritas did get focused, you have to think about the Azir. But also, Rule 18 did a good job too, having 100% kill participation on that Janna. Here's the thing though, Neon Tonso on Fusion is their heartbeat right now. So he's the guy that they're all looking to shut down, and he needs to step up for this next game.
And we'll see if they can do it, though. Of course, guys, to talk about these teams a bit more, this is not the expansion tournament anymore. Fusion have lost a lot of their old starters. Macnoon is gone, Glebe is gone, Nintendo X is gone. Those guys all departed since December. Huhi and Neon Tonso, still very good players, still on that roster, but the rest of these guys have a lot of rebuilding to do.
Yeah, Final 5 played their opponents better, right? They camped bottom lane and crushed Neon Tonso by focusing their attention onto Veritas and getting him going.
So far, some good teams.
Yeah, I thought that was a really good strategy because when you look at Fusion, you think Neon Tonso right now. You think a little bit of Huhi, but Neon Tonso is more of their big voice on the team. He was shut down, and Fusion needs to find a way to get him going. He really is the pulse, like I said, the heartbeat of the team, and he can carry this team. He's a really good team fighter, and his laning phase just needs a little work.
I'll see if they can fill that one up. Of course, you can't underestimate their opponents here with Veritas and Rule 18. Rule 18 was one of the unsung heroes. People were actually surprised he remained on the roster of Final 5. He had performed poorly in the expansion tournament, that Final 5 support, but 100% co-participation. His Janna only one death in Game 1 of this series. He's done well. We cannot talk enough about Veritas. The player you guys might not have heard about very much, but one thing I will share, he is the reigning Oceanic champion, right? He played on Avant-Garde. I got to cast that tournament in at PAX Australia. He was a Korean foreign exchange student to Australia, has now, of course, moved to play here, but very, 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 very strong player. So this is someone that you guys all want to keep your eyes out for.
Yeah, his mechanical prowess is pretty much off the charts. You don't get #1 in North America by about 300 points. He was first challenger, too.
Yeah.
He put so much time into this game, and he's come over here. He speaks the language. He speaks English very fluently, and even if he does have communication problems, Heaven Time speaks both Korean and English and can translate things for him. There are some cultural differences there, but they are meshing as best they can in such a short time. It's very impressive to see them just come out of the gate so quickly with a really good performance.
Come out of the gate so quickly.
Yes.
Good
job. All right.
We've started early.
Unintentional puns. They're the best ones.
Yes, they are.
Yeah. But Team Fusion, they were a little late, so they do lose that first ban, which when you are red side, it could hurt you a little bit here because you're going to leave something up that they're going to want to first pick right off the bat. So, okay.
Make sure you play your ban phase properly. So Fusion, so worried about the Callista. They had picked it early in Game 1. They're banning it here in the second one around here. The Ahri, now by the way guys, we are on 5.2 for this week of Challengers, so the Ahri, the Azir, champions like that, much stronger than they are on the current live environment. That's why you're seeing these bans here.
Yeah, and I want to see that Lissandra being banned last. If they don't, that looks like a first pick up there for Rux. And it is a flex pick too. Gate does play that champion. And you know what? Speaking of flex picks, they could go with that too, but that would leave that up. And the prioritization is on that champion on Kassadin.
That's interesting, yeah. It's weird how the matchup does play out because I feel like Kassadin has a decent time in the matchup, being that he's good against magic damage, but they have such different styles, right? Where Lissandra can start the fights hardcore and Kassadin can't just play picks forever. So we'll have to see how those match up if we do see these champions coming through. Fusion, though, with plenty of time to make their first grabs. Callista, the only AD carry banned away. Annie, the only support banned away. We've typically seen a lot of prioritization on champs like Morgana, for what it's worth.
Yeah, Morgana's making her way into top support and mid lane currently. You saw a lot of players in the play-ins, actually, in the qualifiers, play mid lane Morgana. I was watching a couple of games, and it was like, wait a second, isn't this a different team? And like multiple teams were playing Morgana mid. Yeah,
we're back to Season 1 style. Top lane especially, actually. I almost feel like I see more top lane Morg than mid lane Morg. By a small margin, I agree that she is gaining popularity as a solo laner. But we'll have to see if the champion shows up at all. Fusion taking plenty of time, and they are going to grab the Lissandra after all, so as you predicted, high priority, but Janna actually being the top support here.
Yeah, they take the Kassadin away because that's who he's most played champion, but his second most played is Lissandra. So he's going to get one of those two champions off of this pick ban phase due to the loss of a ban. But I do like the fact that they picked up the Janna, because that's Rule 18's most played champion by a mile. He's got like 78 games on that champion, and then his most played after that is Lulu with like a third of it.
Oh man, so I mean, you expect, though, with just that being this season's games, he's probably got some decent picks to still go back to. What I'm surprised, though, is Final 5 with so many of these high-priority sort of power picks here. Right, the Rek'Sai is still up. That goes to Heaven Time. They're kind of just picking down the tier list right now, taking whatever's up.
Yeah, I mean, Veritas, he does love that Graves, right?
Yep.
Like, it's Graves Callista for him in solo queue all day, every day to get to that top part. He's got a very impressive win record, too. He's about 70, he's got like 170 wins, 100 losses, so a differential of about 70 there, which is really high. Like, that is very impressive. And he's not just playing at like 2 a.m. to play people who are really tired and stuff like that, or people who may not have good internet. He's playing at peak hours against everybody. I think it's fantastic that he's up there and just trying to test himself on the solo queue ladder, but he wants to test himself competitively now too.
I think the goal is to only play during LCS games that like Wild Turtle's not there, and that's how you climb the ladder. You just dodge the LCS players. It's not how it's going. I'm just kind of talking smack. The Rengar does get picked back up from Yima, though. Played that in the first game too. Limited success. Sivir for Nien is interesting. I want to see what support comes in for Final 5, because early levels, if they go for Lulu here, this is one of the most bullyish duo lanes in the first 2 levels. That's going to be very hard for Nien to hold up against.
Yeah, exactly. Like you said, Lulu, 1 through 3, extremely strong lane bully, one of the most powerful supports with just auto attack trading with the passive and all of her abilities combined.
Yeah.
On top of the Graves, this is something that is very difficult for Sivir to deal with in particular.
Yes. Janna, you know, is an okay-ish fighter. Like, the way Janna works is she's just more of a surrogate support where you've got to be, like
2v1, go, take a shield.
Yeah, basically, you really do 1v2 and you rely on your AD carry being ahead and saying you can't win the trade so the shield lasts and we get the damage out. But if you're behind, Janna doesn't do all that much. Fusion now to take their time for their last login here. Looks like they do need a solo laner to come through here for either Chunky Fresh or Huhi. And, oh man, Huhi's definitely a thing of nightmares. It helped carry Fusion pretty far in the expansion tournament. Obviously not quite enough as we see them in Challenger this split, but no. Back to Aurelia. Okay, so Chunky Fresh once again on Aurelia and Lissandra for Huhi.
Yeah, Chunky Fresh, he was a support player for them. He filled in for Glebe during expansion until Glebe got there, and then he was on the bench as the support. Then Glebe left, he came in, and it's like, no, we're going to throw you top to replace where MacNoon left that spot open. So Chunky Fresh wants as comfortable of a champion as possible for him in that top lane, so they want to give him a matchup that he knows, something that he's played a lot, because I don't know how much time he's actually dedicated to that role. He's got a couple months under his belt.
Yeah.
But it's still, you know, you can get thrown curveballs, especially in competitive play. Yesterday, actually, nobody was lane swapped on.
Yeah.
When I looked back at the VODs, nobody's lane swapped on, so everybody's just kind of going 1-on-1s, 2-on-2s. I want to see that first lane swap. How do people react to it?
Yeah.
And how do these challenger teams really move the jungler, allocate their resources,
Right.
and if they play it correctly, because a lot can go wrong.
And I think lane swaps actually are something that should happen, I would say actually more in Challenger than the LCS. I think you can dedicate yourself as a team to say, we're going to learn lane swaps, betting on the fact that many teams won't know how to play them very well, because you expect the overall experience to be lower from this setting, right? More players are fresh out of solo queue, the chances of succeeding are very high. And we see in the LCS teams like Cloud9 dominate because they just play lane swaps better. I am actually, again, surprised that we don't see it so much in the Challenger Series so far. Also, again, you talk about the fact that Chunky Fresh, new to the top lane, been spamming those champs in solo queue, has some learning done there, but again, you can get him out of the role he's uncomfortable with. You say, here's the basic 5 things you do in a lane swap. Just, you know, follow the jungler around, dive with us, whatever. But get out of those really scary sort of one-on-one situations where if you don't know the matchup, someone like Rux can destroy you.
Yeah, and I just keep thinking about the lane swap here. Rux, you know, he's no stranger to LCS play. He played for TIP for the first part of the season, so he got some extra experience in there too. And when I did talk to their manager, he was saying Rux really has kind of a revitalized desire to get back into the LCS. He got a little taste this season, and he's like, it's as competitive as ever. I want to be back in it. So he's fighting for that spot, and lane swapping on Rux and Veritas and Rule 18 might be a little risky here, because Nian Tanso in expansion tournament, he never wanted to lane swap stuff, or because he was like, I'm going to 2-on-2 people every time.
But I think it's a different environment here. I agree in expansion, he was probably the best AD carry in that tournament. I would give him I would put him close to cop skill level. I think he's a little bit better than Mash, and I think he was better than Prototype. Just opinion.
His team fighting is really good.
Right, his team's very good,
point.
but I think his laning and CS-wise were also very good. He could always get his farm in a 2-on-2. Here, though, I feel like the quality of teams got higher. Because you got the old expansion teams, and they got better players like Veritas, but the rest of those rosters are really good as well. Otter and Body Drop, etc. There's a lot of very good duo lanes here. I think that edge is diminished for Nian specifically. I think also more so in this matchup, I think Veritas is probably the best AD carry in Challenger right now, and I would be afraid to face him in lane.
Yeah, no, I would completely agree with you. I think he's, you know, as stats stand, he's the best solo Q80 carry, which means that he knows how to carry games. He knows how to run away with early leads that are handed to him. He knows how to dominate a lane. You don't get that high without knowing that.
Right. And again, he has played in competitive, right? We saw him on Avant-Garde over in Oceania. Now, guys, the reason we're still here instead of Summoner's Rift being on your screen, we did have a pause at the beginning of the game. We'll be bringing that up in the next, I would think, about a minute or so from here. So in 60 seconds-ish, we can finally hide our faces. You guys don't have to deal with us quite as much. But for now, we're going to keep talking about this game, and we will get the game started up fairly soon for you guys.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think about the compositions, too, and what was locked in. But so I do really like the Rek'Sai, though.
Yeah.
Like, the Rek'Sai is a champion right now that has been doing a lot of work, not so much in NA. It hasn't been that successful over here in LCS. EU has seen a little more success with it. And people are still finding out the optimal build path for Rek'Sai. People are like, do I go immediately Sightstone? Do I get a Giant's Belt and sit on it? I think the consensus right now is you go Sightstone for the vision control.
Yeah, it seems to be that junglers tend to want to play more vision-centric, more tank-centric, and sort of play in that style. And you think about it, they've got a Kassadin and a Graves in this lineup anyway, so the damage output is going to be there, and you can rely on base damages. Thinking about the Final 5 composition a little bit, though, you've got a decent front line. Just because of the Lulu support, the wild growth, the extra durability you can add in there, you actually do give yourself really a very good ability to use Rek'Sai as your sole tank and just layer damage on top of that. Kassadin and Rumble just kind of jumping into the team fight and blitzing the damage dealers down before they can kill off the somewhat squishy Rek'Sai.
Yeah, and what was the top lane pick for Rux?
Rumble.
Rumble, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a team that actually transitions, like, has different people at different stages of the game. It's like Rek'Sai early, transitioning into Rumble mid-game, and then Kassadin hopefully takes over late for them. That's what they want. And then Veritas is going to be kind of good at all stages of the game. Like, Graves is kind of the new Lucian.
Yeah, it's how people are choosing to play him, right?
Yeah.
People are basically picking the champion based on sort of power spikes throughout the game, more so than like what do they fulfill in a team comp, more or less. And it's like, look, his early lane's pretty good. He spikes really well on the first AD item because he's an AD caster type, AD carry. I mean, a champion like Varus could do the same thing, but yeah, okay, they're picking Graves as this sort of cleanup AD carry, has a good initial start to the fight with buckshot and collateral damage. And so just because we don't have it on the screen for you guys, the team comp for Final 5, top lane Rumble, jungle Rek'Sai, mid lane Kassadin, AD carry Graves, support Lulu.
Yeah.
And I think it's well-rounded, good lanes everywhere but mid. Mid can suck it up and farm for a little while. He will be behind Zed. That's a matchup I expect Huhi to win, mid Zed against Kassadin. But overall, yeah, they can transition their team fights pretty well. And Kassadin just applying a slow is at least something you can do.
Yeah, and at least something you can do. That's what he can do. Just throw a slow on people. He'll be good.
I mean, it's a team comp where you're relying on everyone else for the damage output early game. And because we talk about champions with power troughs early on, right? Old Tristana from 5.1 and earlier, right? She does like basically nothing for 25 minutes of the game. Kassadin is a more subdued version of that, where, look, this guy can still get on the back line and cause havoc and get back out. He can put down a 90% slow on like half of the team to make Rumble do more damage, right? Because he's going to line up for the equalizer and things like that. So there is some extra power there that Kassadin can do despite power troughs. That camera zoom out does mean we're getting ourselves into the game. So the rematch between Final 5 and Fusion is just about here. And let's see what we got.
And also I want to talk about Fusion's lineup here with the Aurelia, the Rengar, the Lissandra, the Sivir, and the Janna. Right? Sivir Janna is still a really good lane, right? Like, this is the type of lane that lets you pick your fights later on. And they have Mimo, and the reason they picked Mimo, because Shorter Ace, got removed from the team, and they picked up Mimo after some tryouts. This was because they were looking for somebody who complemented their mid laner, who really made him shine. And Mimo was the one who seemed to be a cut above everybody else, very slightly, to accentuate who he's strengths. So this is actually a very mid-centric team after Nian Tanso has his say.
Well, speaking of Nian Tanso, though, taking a whole bunch of early harassment by Veritas and Rule 18, they decide not to trade summoners. I don't know, if your Q is back up, I'd trade my flash for Saber's heal and try to bully the lane out, but choosing to play safely here. I want to watch how these early invades go, though. Not extremely deep wards by the blue team. Even though they had pushed Sivir out and they saw the invade coming from Fusion, nothing that's going to watch too much of the opposing jungler's path. We'll see. If Mimo does start Gromp, he will get spotted. If he starts Wolves or topside, they won't know necessarily. But who doesn't start Gromp? I guess it's a silly question.
Oh,
I guess what he is doing, though, he's hiding in the fog, so they will only know at 155.
Yeah.
They actually pinged the ward. This is actually very smart by Fusion. They spotted the ward coming down. They will not reveal the jungle start until the last possible second.
That's a relatively late ward, yeah. So it'll still be up by the time they start it. Unless they really delay it. Yeah, they're going to see him there no matter what. So they do get the read on it. They do see the damage, and they know that they're going to get that 2-on-2.
Okay, so 2-on-2 lane's going to happen. They can see the leash was there. But Veritas and Rule 18, I feel like, should be in a decent spot in the 2-on-2. They even have a slight push lead. You can see the minions dropping first there. And the Ricochet spam, I don't think will do quite enough to stop them. So, unfortunately, guys, we do have one more quick pause here in this game.
Just got to tease you a little bit.
Hey, we got to see the lane assignment, so a little bit more was there for you guys.
Welcome back to Challenger. You missed us so much. We had to get back on screen, because what's Challenger without some pauses?
That's true. It's like Nidalee, 4 pauses per game.
Oh, no 4. Like, can we just ban Nidalee every game, and then we'll be good? No more pauses. But so that bottom lane matchup, though, I want to talk about that a little bit. And I know that you're really keen on these. Yeah. So when it's Janna Sivir, that's more of a team fighty. That's more like a a utility for your team as opposed to the Graves and the Lulu, which is to dominate the lane.
It doesn't have a catchy name like Narvin, but Sivir Janna is one of the most common duo lanes I've seen in League of Legends. If you go back and watch all like the pro games for the last month and a half, there's a crap ton of Sivir Janna. So first of all, it's team win rate. If you play solo queue, like both these champions are like top 3 in their role based on solo queue, which doesn't always translate to competitive for what it's worth. I'm not saying you need to pick Talon and Fiora every single game, but for what it's worth, it's there. What it's really good about, though, is the fact that it is a duo that lets you pick your team fights. When you want to start a battle, Sivir's very, very good at that. You pile on in, whatever the fight is. If it's a 5v4, you're almost always going to win it. If you're in a bad one, Janna presses R, Sivir might as well, and you get out there. So they're very good at choosing what kind of team fight they want to do. They're not good at the team fight necessarily, but again, 5-on-4 means it's free regardless. The laning phase is actually less bad than you might think. Because they run pretty quickly, because Sivir can help Janna get out through the ulti, they're actually fairly resilient to ganks. Also, Janna Q can stop like Lee Sin Q, can stop a Vi Q, can stop a Jarvan EQ, can actually block most of the move blocks here. And then the way they get out of the laning phase itself, because their 2-on-2 fight isn't very good, is they have godly wave clear. For spending very little mana, Janna buffs up Sivir, and Sivir presses W, and the wave's gone. And you can just like shove into the turret and get away, shove in the turret and get away. It's how Tristana's used to get out of laning phase. They would rush Static Shiv, clear the wave with the E passive, and just never fight because the minions are gone. And so these guys can get out of lane. What that requires, though, is Sivir auto-attacking the minion wave at 500 range, which means she has to put herself at risk of getting attacked to push, and that's where it requires good skill by the Graves and Lulu to push her back out.
You still have to be able to pop that shield, though, to actually get to her HP bar while she's trying to shove. And we saw it there. They're trying to rush those waves down on both sides so that nobody gets that advantage. So it's not going to be one of those, all right, let's try and make sure that the wave is prepped for the 3-minute gank, because both the junglers start on the bottom side. You aren't going to get jungle attention unless they come straight down from level 2 until about the 4.5-minute mark.
Yeah, what you are seeing, though, is the fact that, you know, Buckshot does decent damage, and the level 2 will come out first by Final 5. It's 1 minion away now for them. And look at that, immediately jumps on in, one attack onto the Janna, and back they go.
Mimo is actually in the jungle in the river. He's getting the scuttle to make sure that his bottom lane is covered.
Very smart here, clears it out, gets himself at 3 ferocity. Learned Q and W so far, so no Bulla ganks looking here. But yeah, Gromp to blue buff to the Scuttle Crab. Interesting pattern, then goes back to Wolves.
Yeah, it means he's going to be a little behind in levels and experience overall, because the Scuttler doesn't give you that much experience compared to a camp. It gives you some gold, but you usually want to kill it once you have your jungle item to just enhance that gold by a flat amount.
65 at this stage of the game instead of, I guess it would be 80 if you had upgraded by now. But we'll let him recall off of just only 3 quote-unquote camps here, if you count the Scuttler. You can see the bottom lane trade. Look how much damage gets done there. Nina's out of mana. Veritas pops the heal. There's nothing to be done to him, really. I'm surprised he flashed, but was afraid of the Sivir damage output.
Yeah, didn't want to get hit by that last Howling Gale, and both flashes were still up, so if he didn't flash and he still got hit by that, he wouldn't have time to react to Ni and Tanso running up.
All right, so a 1 Summoner spell lead now to the Fusion bottom lane.
But at the same time, his HP, they're both popping their potions right now. Ni and Tanso's almost in the same position that Veritas is, actually a little bit lower.
And the thing is, really, Team can actually do things with his mana bar. He can actually harass there on Lulu and push Nian down. So, despite that, you know, okay, they're going to go for the quick recall. Yep. Second Doran's Blade and a Ruby Crystal will be the purchases for Final 5. They got the push, and with Nian having no mana, they don't push fast.
Yeah, they can't punish this and shove it straight to the turret immediately. They'll get some creeps crashing against it.
Yeah.
But they're not going to lose too many on the side of Final 5. And they'll come back with more combat stats and possibly shove it in even faster.
And I think this is I don't know if it's this or the next wave that's the cannon wave. If it is the cannon wave, it means even less minions get killed because the cannon takes enough time to go down that you usually return to your lane. Now, the mid lane matchup I do want to watch because Gate had first picked blind the Kassadin to deny it from Huhi. Oh yeah, sorry, I thought it was Zed in the matchup. Right, they went for Aurelia at the end. I feel silly that I talked about Zed being here. Gate should be able to farm reasonably here.
Oh, Mimo didn't get seen. Just walks right around the minion wave, right out of vision.
Interesting.
But like I said, Fusion likes to play towards their mid lane, and oh, they see Mimo there though.
Oh wow, he knocked up him. So like, I don't think the Q even landed necessarily. Heaven Time though forced to run away. Gate low on health and mana, and Trance already being there in the jungle means Heaven Time has to run away.
Yeah, there's a really interesting mechanic with the way that you unburrow. If you right-click somebody and they get an auto-attack range, you will automatically unburrow. So if somebody like a Katarina, you're chasing Katarina and you know she's going to shumpo you, you just right-click her, and as soon as she shumpos you, you will pop up and knock her up. Almost instantaneously, they'll be like, oh my god, the mechanics!
Yeah.
But all you did was buffer the skill.
And it's something that Double's a big fan of is, you know, layering things like Condemn against a buffer. And
as soon as they get in range.
Yep. It'll just go off for them. So you can see Rux actually is down a little bit in minions here. Chunky Fresh, though he's losing some of his health bar, is actually doing a pretty darn good job in this lane. So for everyone wondering if Chunky Fresh can hack it in the top lane, so far the answer is yes.
Yeah, and they last picked this Aurelia for him so that he's comfortable in that lane, so that he has something that he knows how to perform on. And he played it yesterday, not to great success off of a bad TP bottom. But yeah, I think that's going to be more the same this game. I think the action's going to happen in this bottom lane consistently. This is where both teams are trying to focus their resources.
I gotta say, I am very impressed by Fusion's ability to 2-on-2 this, though. As a matchup I would have thought would well, but hold on, Mimo getting attacked pretty hard by Heaven. A level advantage here, but he has an empowered W. He chooses it for the E instead. He bolas the guy. Now they go. Now the ulti pop by Huhi. Gate is not 6 yet. He's going to ignite, try to make the trade. The magic resist shield. Oh, Huhi flashes in for the auto attack. Doesn't do enough damage. He's going down. Greeds for the kill. Miscalculates, and Gate gets first blood.
Gate, that's why you have potions running when you go in for a fight. The auto attack was not enough to finish him off from Huhi, and he ends up with that kill. This is really bad for Fusion, because Kassadin thrives off of kills early on to get him through that power trough you were talking about.
Yeah, he's not supposed to get the kill here. Look at this. Heaven Time's going to help shove the wave out to make sure Gate can recall without missing any more minions than he could help. And wow, that's going to be so massive. Gate is just incredibly well set up to win this game. But keep in mind, Fusion, despite giving up the 1v1 first blood, are actually holding equal in gold. So their farm is going incredibly well in the bottom lane as well as the top lane. Me and Tanso and Trance actually crushing this dual lane against at least my expectation.
Yeah, they keep getting the good recall here and the bad recall out of Veritas. They're shoving the wave up, they're chunking him out a little bit, but they're the ones who are staying in lane slightly longer. So Veritas backs, they shove a wave to his turret, and he just misses out.
And it means that the recalls, even though like Veritas will get this wave and like equalize the CS in air quotes, the fact is, Mian got to recall on 50 CS, meaning he got better items for his recall. Yeah,
and he also keeps backing on cannon minion waves. And like you said, every third wave is a cannon minion wave, and that's when you want to back, because the cannon minion takes longer to take down. There's more effective HP inside of the minion wave, or just HP in general.
And it can help sort of make a push mean a bit less for your opposition if you can time that. And what happens?
Huhi needs as much help as possible. He was up in CS until that point. He's still up, but that kill going over to Kassadin gets him through that phase, and he actually didn't go with the Catalyst. He goes for the Blasting Wand just to keep pressure onto Huhi and increase that shield that he has.
That's a bit greedy because the sustain could be useful, but I guess he's relying on flash charges and expecting that Huhi can't deal much damage to him anymore, and if he's right about the flash charges, then okay.
They both bought flasks, though, so they're kind of trying to out-sustain each other, and he's going for the just throw my Q out, throw my Null Sphere, and hopefully soak up a Q, so I wasted some of Huhi's mana. Right, and then just play that game for a bit.
Well, Huhi's got plenty of mana to spare, though. His blue buff went onto him. Gate's going to do the same thing. Chooses to save his Rift Walk, just wait for the Q cooldown, pick that thing up. And right now, mid going to remain a farm fest, but Huhi having the push lead does mean that he can kind of dictate what Gate is up to. Mimo, you can see he wants to gank this lane once the lane resets.
Yeah, he's 6'2", so as soon as Gate goes aggressive, he can capitalize on it. It is that first rank of Rift Walk, so it is really actually got a decent cooldown on it.
One thing to watch, though, is Gate actually push the wave as slowly as possible to try to get it back towards his turret. You can see Rengar looks at the gank, but there's no way it's going to work. Yeah, Gate had enough room to work with.
Yeah, Gate just has to Rift Walk backwards. You have to bait the Rift Walk out in a forward offensive manner and then turn it around with a Frozen Tomb. You can't just think that the player is going to Rift Walk into Huhi immediately when you see Huhi go forward.
He has no reason to. There's no vision on the enemy jungle. We haven't seen anything in a while. In fact, there are literally 0 wards mid lane for Gate here. It'd be silly to push forward.
Are there any wards on the map for Final 5 in general? I don't think so. There might just be one.
There is a Sightstone for Lulu, so they've got to be a couple wards somewhere. There's one in the Dragon Pit now.
They're in their lane.
Yeah.
Dragon Pit and then the lane rush. They think that Mimo is going to come from lane ganks into bot lane. And that's what you would think. right? Like, this is you who played these guys yesterday, and bot lane had a lot of focus on it. You need to cover this bottom lane for yourself.
Well, so far, they're being covered by boomerangs right now. Niantanso making it cold in there. An 11 CS lead. The pickaxe coming in first as well. Just Final 5 having a really horrible time in this duo lane. That said, though, the recall timings allowed them to have a sight stun of their support where there was not one for Trance. And the ward coverage has kept them safe from Rengar at the very least.
Mimo, he hasn't been able to get much done on this map. It was just that solo kill in the mid lane for Gate off of a mistake. So now, he's going to go for the dragon.
Well, with the Raptor buff, he knows that there is a ward in the pit. Rek'Sai, farm alarm comes off, says, hey, I'm going to take a dragon.
It's not a farm alarm. It's a mating call. He's looking for him.
Wow.
Not going to go in there.
That's one way to put it. He loses half his health bar, though, to Gate, just putting out the damage. The Claw of Doom only just kills minions. Chunky Fresh went into aggress onto Rux, a player who has been fairly impressive so far for Fusion. Still up 14 minions in this lane. I would not have expected that against a veteran such as Rux, but...
Yeah, and you leave this Aurelia alone, she hits those item spikes, right? The power trough for Aurelia is kind of mild early on, but then she just spikes so quickly, and it's just like, whoa, I didn't know that Aurelia was so fed, and she doesn't have any kills. She just has CS.
All right, well, Guts for Final 5. Teleports are up for both top lanes, but they have grouped for the Dragon Fusion. Milling about, maybe they will stop. Heaven Time looks for the engage, gets a two-man knockup. In come the TPs. Trance losing a lot of his health, and down goes Rek'Sai, though. Final 5 now to fight a 4v5. Veritas forced to run away. Great Rumble ulti is going to buy a lot of time for the team. Rule 18 stuck against the wall will also go down. Fusion picking up a lot of kills this fight. 3 kills unanswered.
There's still a turret there.
He wants the execute. No, gives the kill to Aurelia. Now Gate, nowhere to go. That's a kill.
Take his last breath there.
That's a 5 for nothing.
Yep.
Fusion just crushed that battle. They're going to get the dragon. Absolutely beautiful fight.
The TPs came in. They already had the dragon on them, and then they trailed off to the right side and just got collapsed on. They couldn't get to Niantanso. It was a really good disengage by Trance. I really like that protection there. Look at that. Fusion. Slap their logo on the screen, because that's what it's all about. They can't get to Niantanso. Heaven Time flashes to get to him, but then they're on Veritas at that point, and there's nothing they can do about that. Veritas has to flash over the wall, and he starts backing for the remainder of the fight. He's effective DPS, but drops to 0, and it's all about Rux with the equalizer, but it's still not enough at that point.
It absolutely wasn't. So, unfortunate risk there by Final 5. They tried to circumvent the Aurelia Triforce Power Spike, use the Rumble with the Haunting guys. Would have done, figured, hey, it's going to be a lot of damage, but just couldn't do nearly enough for these guys. Fusion now looking pretty incredible.
Yeah.
Got ward control.
They had a really good bottom lane setup here. Niantanso is crushing this lane by 20 CS. He has a BF sword, pickaxe, and all the components for his Infinity Edge against a Brutalizer pickaxe. He's in a really good spot.
Everytime's got to be afraid, though. Pops ulti into his own jungle, but can he really even fight in this? It does force Fusion back, but... And so far, these guys looking like the team people expected them to be back in the expansion tournament in the first place. This was expected to be like the team that was sure to make it into the LCS. And they'd lost their very first game of this split so far, but maybe this is what the team's supposed to look like here in Game 2.
Yeah, they saw Mimo walk up, and there's nothing you can get from that. But yeah, this is looking more like the team that people were expecting to come out. They're expecting like McNoon to crush top lane, and then it was like Mien is going to be amazing. He did have great team fighting, but now he's worked on his laning, because that's where he identified his weakest point was. He's been focusing on that. And holding up against Veritas and actually having a really big advantage over him is a great start.
It absolutely is. I can't believe they actually won lane with Coin Janna.
Yeah,
that's like the weakest support in the game.
Really hard.
Coin Janna does not fight, but
I mean, they kept trading, right? They kept trading, and then he just sits there and he's like, okay, I'm getting some gold.
Nien just managed to land very good boomerangs, really good ricochets, and he was in a good spot. Mimo just continually trying to control the Scuttle Crab. No, right now he's getting 5 stacks on Ferocity. He's outside of ward vision.
Yep, they did not see him go in there. He has his ultimate available. They need to bait the Rift Walks, though, before they walk up. There's his pink ward.
Is he afraid of Gate? Of course, there's not a lot of deep wards. He actually doesn't know.
He doesn't know if he can clear it. Yep.
Yeah, Rek'Sai could be there anytime.
He has no clue. Rule 18, actually. Walking around. Rule 18 is notorious for getting caught out while killing wards.
Okay, see, there's no ward over the wall, so we can actually hide here up against this. I don't believe Mimo can see him quite. He's staying outside of vision range, and yep, Mimo just says, you know what, let's just kill the Scuttler.
Too long. Yeah, gotta get some gold.
He just feels very confused. Like, it's heartbreaking when he's like, okay, I'm on top of a ward.
Oh,
They know I'm there.
They're gonna take this.
Wow, Gate looking aggressive. Trance, though, up in this mix. Nice ulti from Lulu, and Gate over the wall. So much gank setup. Rule 18 spent 40 seconds and made it nothing.
The wild growth gave him enough time during the knockup on Mimo to stop him from using his bola strike to lock him up. It just went really wide because it gave him enough time to rift walk.
Beautiful stuff then. Final 5 making a couple of good plays here. They are sitting on a 2,500 gold deficit. Gate is going to greed for this ward kill. And thankfully rift walks just in time to not get hit with the empowered bola that would have canceled or prevented the ability to be cast.
Really good job, though, by Niantanso. While all that was going on, he just shoves out bottom wave, has his infinity edge compared to the parts of basically 2 different items.
Yeah, it's like kind of early Youmu's, but kind of not. Oh, God.
Yeah, that's a crit.
That's why infinity edge is good, guys.
Yeah.
Wow, that's 3 crits in a row. That's unlikely.
And nope. There we go. And yep.
1,500 gold lead. Yeah, there's a lot of individual power here. Mid lane is close. Every other lane, I would say, actually, take it back, Heaventime's also farming really well. Mimo is wasting a lot of time from Fusion, but the carry lanes are all farming quite nicely.
Did you see that TSM CLG comms where Locodoco is telling the bottom lane, don't trade when you're behind?
Yeah.
This is the situation for Final 5. You don't want to trade at this point in the game. But look at
Fresh
that.
does, though. He's a couple hits away from killing Rux. Wow, he needed 1 more ulti charge. Heaventime, there's no way you can win this battle. You've got just a warrior and chance. So, Chunky Fresh essentially winning a 1v2.
Yes, he chunked out Rux to the point where he's a non-factor. Chunky Fresh is 2 levels up over Rux at this point. He has his rank 2 ultimate, was just pumping out that damage. Look, speaking of rank 2 ultimates right there. In this mid lane, Gate is just trying to trade over and over again, and it's working for him at the moment. And if they can leverage this pressure middle, they can start invading the jungle, and that could be Final 5's way back in. But this bottom wave, this bottom lane, has a lot of damage dealt to it here. CS is much lower. The kills are on Niantanso. This is what Fusion wants when you walk into a game. If you're like, let's get Niantanso fed, then they're doing it.
All right, well, so far so good then. The only lane that can pressure for Final 5 is that mid lane. Fusion holding the 2 outside lanes, and now you got to see what these teams can do with advantage. It's Veritas, they're getting really hit up. Their exhaust force to be used. Niantanso, the Q, the second half will miss. Oh, big burst coming out, but Summoner Heal and ulti pop keep him safe. Mimo is coming in, and the teleport from Aurelia misses the root, but Rule 18 goes down anyway. Ulted Heaventime and not himself. And then he goes down.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Mimo, who jumped in, threw out a bola, missed, doesn't care. Does enough damage to take out Rule 18. That rewards them with the turret. And even more pressure on this map. Fusion are not letting the early game get away from them like they did yesterday.
And Dragons up in 6 seconds, meaning a very clean and quick grab for Fusion if they want it. First, they clear away some Rek'Sai tunnels. They take the Scuttler as well. Just grab the side objectives, and then, okay, this Dragon pretty much uncontestable. And after this, now what can they do? Niantanso out of mana, meaning maybe they recall, maybe they take more objectives.
Up top, though, who he had to rotate here to deal with Rux, he would have gotten that turret. So it was good by Rux to notice that he doesn't have to TP to that already lost fight. He can stay in his top lane and shove it.
At the same time, I gotta say, compliments to Fusion for recognizing that there was no contest for the Dragon. They can let their mid laner leave the Dragon area. There was no way who he could have helped the fight if Rux did TP, but they knew there was no contest by Final 5, and they sent someone away from the Dragon pit. So smart allocation of resources. They keep their outer turret alive because of all this. He's setting a trap for Rux. Ulti comes in. Q, W, another Q. Equalizer does come out, though. Heaventime's here. He dodges away from some of it, gets the first kill, and in comes the Trance. The shield comes out after a flash. The exhaust there as well. Heaventime has nowhere to go. Nice Q from Nian, and there's the cleanup.
Nian is taking over this game. They rotate their bottom lane to the top to get him to push down turrets and just give them an even larger gold advantage. So Fusion, they're like, we're done with this bottom lane. We've already crushed it. It's time to go top and get more income.
Wow, I'm surprised they chose top lane over mid, being that Kassadin...
Mid's really low, too.
Mid, yeah.
They could take mid at any time.
Maybe it comes next, but Mimo is forced to defend 1v3 in the mid lane. They're sending Lissandra over, but she's not going to be here just yet.
Nobody's dealing with Nian.
Oh man, they're up to top tier 2 and no one is there. You're absolutely right. They expected defense and they went around to ward and look at blue buff. They could have like all in that turret and gotten it to half.
Yep, they decided to just get the blue buff for their troubles. might maybe rotate towards the mid lane because it is below half HP. That mid lane is really close to falling.
Yeah, but just look at the expected rotates. Like, I want to point out all these things that happen. Nian trinketed with his blue trinket. The brushes by Baron, again, expecting Final 5 to show. Still, no one tried to defend against buff steals his bush or anything. Gate, though, does get rooted, has to flash away from Nian's Q, but this is still likely to be a dead outer turret. The rest of Final 5 are coming, so they're nearby. Nemo's going for the flank. He's going to flash on a Gate. Down goes Cassidy, 1 for nothing. Now, can you really fight much more than this? Another root does land. Heaventime losing a lot of health. But a nice Glitter Lance will slow them down. But Fusion, after getting up first blood, get 9 kills in a row.
They can go bottom right now. This turret already has minions clashing against it, and they have the damage output to take this very quickly.
Jeez, Chunky Fresh was bot lane the whole time, shoving the wave on in. This is such a clean game by Fusion, that one mid lane kill notwithstanding. And they just turned a team fight into like 6 turrets in a row, and that is a little bit of hyperbole.
But look at that. Rux is going mid lane right now. Heaventime is mid lane. They're just going to give up this inhibitor turret.
No one is even defending these pushes from Fusion. They are given everything. 21 minutes in, they're hitting an inhibitor.
Look at that. The fight's going to start out here. Rux comes in.
Going to see what they can do. Nian has already flashed out, though, and some damage does come through. The burst of this Final 5 comp is quite a lot. Fusion did slightly overstay, and that turret kill turns into bait as 2 members of Fusion die. Ignite is on Nian. Good tornado, but one more Rift Walk will be the kill. And now Trance forced to run out. Looks like he will be safe for that, but 3 kills picked up in the backside by Final 5.
2 of them go over to Veritas. He's not back in the game completely yet because he's still missing out on a very key item for AD carries, but he's getting his feet off the ground slightly. And Final 5, they do have avenues back into this game if Fusion keeps doing things like this, but they can't give up turrets like that over and over again. Look at this. Rux comes in and he just deals in a massive amount of damage. But Veritas, this is the fights that Final 5 were having yesterday where Veritas is left unchecked. Nobody is dealing damage to him, and then Gate is that secondary threat that comes through the fight and cleans up.
Yeah, very smart plays with these guys. Good usage of AoE. A lot of Fusion had grouped up there and got Flame Spittered and Buckshot into submission. So glimmers of hope for Final 5. They are down 6,000 gold 22 minutes in, though, which is a very steep deficit, but miracles, of course, can always happen. Top lane, outer turret goes down finally to
a miracle.
Wave. So some things are happening. Some growth is here for Final 5, but it's going to take a lot more than what's happening right now to get them back in. Fusion allocating the resources once again. Red buff onto Nian. Clear some more of the jungle. Make sure all of the gold streams are being tapped as much as possible, and then go in for a push afterwards.
So here's the part of the game where Fusion need to check their shot calling. How do you get these turrets from Final 5?
Yeah.
Because skirmishing these guys in the jungle is beneficial actually for both teams. Both teams kind of want that jungle skirmish and chase down.
That's true. With the gold lead, you expect mostly skirmishes to go Fusion's way. What I will point out, though, is there is no deep vision for Fusion because all those turret kills, all that movement throughout the map was on the same recall, meaning Sightstone ran out of charges, and there was no ability to put more wards down. There was a single deep ward here. They are re-invading for the blue buff in the top side of the map, and for this top turret that actually no one from Final 5 right now is defending. But this is the only bastion of power these guys have.
Veritas is the only person answering on this turret. There are 4 people off on the side.
He jumps on in, and it forces immediately Veritas to retreat. He ults for the minion wave, but who even cares? Nothing goes down. There's top.
They're wrapping around. Heaventime
wants something to do, but he is very alone. The team is nearby. Okay, hold on. We forced to run. E is down. Equalizer comes off, but the re-engage, the ulti, Mimo in the front lines, but a lot of CC might keep him alive. Trance got to be careful. Puts the ulti on, but so much damage coming through. Mimo still running out. Gate wants his kill, gets one. Now Huhi forced to run away. The Flame Spitter from Rux does start turning this fight around. 2 for 2 so far. Chunky Fresh trying to be the carry his team needs, but Veritas might answer back onto him. Niantanzo says hello to Veritas, jumps over the wall, but Chunky Fresh answers him back. Triple kill for the Aurelia. Now Gate forced to run. Can he do so? Another stun comes across, and that will be the ace for Fusion.
That team fight looked like it was going terribly for Fusion, and then it gets flipped around because Veritas is not in it for a very long time, chasing the Niantanzo and Trance out, but they just wrap around and re-engage the fight because Chunky was just keeping them busy.
Power gold leads.
Yeah, but watch Veritas' damage output. He's off on the, he's down below this fight, and he walks up, and then he chases them off to the left side, and they start running away. They disengage him, and he's trying to get back in. And he chases the left side of the fight instead of the right. So he actually doesn't get anything done here.
Oh, wow.
And then, meanwhile, They're cleaning up here. Chunky Fresh takes out Rux. If Veritas had, instead of chasing, had immediately pulled off, he would have been able to take out Chunky Fresh. And then they would have been able to turn this.
A bit agreed by Veritas. Unfortunate play there, and it does give Fusion's Chunky Fresh the time to deal damage. And right off the respawn, Fusion wants this blue up. The steal attempt comes in. Nice smite. Heaven Time does flash up the wall, but guess what? Lissandra presses R to get the kill back. Now 4v5. Fusion has some time to make plays.
Good job by Huhi there to throw his Glacial Path over the wall because he knew that's where Heaven Time's exit route was. So he covered his options.
Very smart things in the quick ult to make sure he couldn't get out any farther as well. But again, 5v4. The Dragon does give 1 to Final 5 here. They get the attack damage and AP buff. But mid lane, under fire. The whole team is here. The Janna shielded Sivir eviscerates turrets with a high attack speed build of Berserker's Greaves and the Phantom Dancer. Those things die quickly. Chunky Fresh now also to take away more of the jungle. That said, he is on top of a ward while doing this. Final 5 can collapse.
Chunky Fresh is really tanky at this point, though, for the damage output. Final 5, you see Veritas' item build. He doesn't have a lot of crit chance, doesn't have the crit enhancement either. Chunky Fresh,
Ults it.
Hey, he's got to ult it to take it.
I think it's worth it.
Yeah.
Get away from Aurelia. She's a pretty big nightmare with that.
If she would have queued that, it's definitely over 200 damage.
It's over 200!
Ah! What? 200?
On repeat, over and over. Oh, man.
But, so these guys on Fusion's side right now are really relying on Nian Tanso, and it's working.
Yes.
He's got the highest CS in the game, the highest kill participation on his team, and he's going for a Bloodthirster because he doesn't care about the armor yet. He's just wanting that Boomerang Blade damage to chunk out Veritas from the fight and to shut down Gate.
And that'll be the goal. Gate, the only guy really still doing all that well on the Final 5 lineup. And if he's allowed to run free, he can do really scary things to the back line of Fusion. But so far, they've done a pretty good job of playing around that. The gold lead sits at over 9,000 right now. Fusion look towards the mid lane. Now, keep in mind, bottom inhibitor is open. If they group bot, they just get to push the inhibitor down and likely make that pressure that sets up Baron. Final 5 look for a brush gate, or brush gank, rather.
Gate was the one looking for it, though.
Yeah, so, you know, it worked in the end. But you see really heavy hesitation. Fusion wanting to instead get Baron control right away. Okay, they pushed out mid. Cool, that means we can ward up Baron. So very obvious what their objective is going to be right now, setting up a Baron bait or a Baron rush. You can see that was through Trance's shield, by the way. That is the damage output that Gate has right now. It's a decent chunk of someone's health.
They don't have the ward coverage for this. Final 5 pinging bottom lane. Look at that. The Scuddler's up. They see it. They know it. Fusion are obviously baiting this or trying to do it faster than they can react. They want the fight. They want to force it.
He wants to zone them out. Claws on in. Ults Heaven Time. And then here comes the battle. They're staying for Baron. It's going to be killed by Chunky Fresh of all people, actually. But that is Baron to Fusion.
This is not a good fight
in
for
a
Fusion.
pretty bad spot. It's going to be 2-0 so far. Now, who's going to get the cleanup? In comes Chunky Fresh. Does trade one back. And Nian gets help from Mimo. They will kill off Rux. And Heaven Time doesn't have the damage. Gate died, which meant nothing else could happen. It's a 3v2 now.
Veritas is not showing up to these fights. He's getting zoned out of them and pretty much taking poor pathing. He's not able to get onto the carries. He's not able to be part of his middle line. And everybody on Final 5 are seeming a little jumbled here. They're diving after Nian Tanso, and he's just killing them while walking backwards because of his damage output.
You just can't reliably jump in onto a Janna. I mean, you would think these champions are actually pretty good at dealing with Janna. You've got Rumble, Equalizer, Kazan can get back in after getting knocked out. But the damage clearly is not there.
Yeah, look at Veritas. He's so far away from this fight. They had to start it because the Baron was just going to go down no matter what. And he's still walking up at this point. And Final 5 continue to press this. They get Huhi, and they don't disengage it. They're immediately like, chase down Nian Tanso, we can't reach him. And then Mimo jumps over the wall. He was pretty much dead if they had gone into the pit instead of chasing Nian. And now Veritas is finally there.
Yeah, really strange situations here. Just not a full team fight for Final 5, and that is a very large issue.
It was kind of a do-or-die situation, though.
Yeah.
You have to go in to stop the Baron, or at least contest it. They pick up people, but the fact they continued the fight onward instead of kiting towards Veritas, because if Fusion wanted to continue the fight, they would have to chase if they were running away on Final 5 side.
I mean, they one-shot the Janna.
Yeah.
At that point, reclick with your AD carry and go for it again, and hope that you have enough CC to keep the fight going. But
it was good by Fusion
yes,
to go for the Baron and put them in that situation, because Veritas was back, right? He does have his Infinity Edge completed, and that's an item he sorely needed 10 minutes ago.
That's true. At least he's starting on Last Whisper, so he's sacrificing lifesteal for more damage, needing that output to be able to deal with champions like this Fed Aurelia. But Fusion with Baron buff on 3 members, ready to siege up against the turretless inhibitor in the bot lane. I can't see a successful defense here without a severe outplay.
Yep, Chunky Fresh has a lot of tankiness in his tank right now. I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, sure.
A lot of tankiness in the tank. Niantanso, he's got a lot of damage in that tank too. So he's just walking up. He's just going to get handed an inhibitor here when he wants to take it.
Notice how safe they're playing, relying on the cannon to kill it. Nian has no reason to auto-hex this inhibitor anymore. Chunky Fresh can't use a tank, and down goes bot and hip. Smart of Final 5 to not contest. But Fusion now, about 31 minutes in, should be looking to close this out. You don't want to give the chance for Kassadin to hard carry. He's got 4 kills. He's got some decent items. Void Staff soon. Don't give Final 5 the chance of turning this game around.
Exactly. If you stall it out to the late game, this is a composition that can do some good things with the Kassadin. But Fusion, they still have the insurance of a really tanky Aurelia. Nobody's going to get that tanky on Final 5's side or be that much of a threat to your back line. Mimo, he has the option of going full tank or building a little bit more damage to deal with the backliners. But I think that they're just focusing on keeping Niantanso safe by having multi-threats that dive. Who he's going to be in the backline, lots of vulnerability on him and damage output. And Chunky Fresh is just this huge threat that he will get to your backline because you don't have ways to really disengage him.
Yeah. And that's the cool thing about playing bruisers into double AP is they typically don't want to try to burst out the tank with a Spirit Visage and Merc Treads. So you get kind of impunity to deal with the enemy AD carry, who's honestly still not well equipped to deal with him. So Chunky Fresh, even though he's not being protected by his team necessarily, is protected by the fact that no one really wants to kill him first.
Nope. You want to go for Niantanso. You want to get rid of this 6, 1, and 10 head Sivir. But when you're in that situation, you kind of have to go through the front line. And it is a 500 range AD carry, right? That is the fallback, or I guess the downfall of Sivir.
Downside,
Downside is that her range is very low. So when you're that far up, 2 auto attack people,
reach.
You are in reach. Exactly.
Which means Veritas with the soon-to-be-completed Last Whisper, and plus this Youmu's means he can burst on Sivir pretty hard. Like, there is the ability to hit Nian here. The question is it enough damage? Mikhail's, shields, lockout as well here, by the way, for Mimo. There's a lot of ways to keep Nian afloat here in the team fight. And so far, only 1 death. So far, so good.
Fusion do have a lot going for them, though. They had that Baron buff from before, so they have that extra gold. Up 11,000, and they have super minions pushing this bottom wave. Those minions are going to clash against the turret very shortly.
It's a giant wave, too.
Veritas wants to answer, but he's torn right now. You can see that.
They clear this wave, then they go for it.
Their wave clear is extremely poor, too. Right? It's pretty much Rux.
But now they'll get it. The duo wave is going to be held, and actually Fusion didn't let Huhi or Chunky Fresh push down mid to create a second wave of pressure, which means Final 5 could just sit 4 guys on this lane, use Lulu and Graves to wave clear, and honestly remain safe. The bot lane inhibitor turret, or Nexus turret I should say, should stay alive. The wave should be done right about now, and Veritas can rejoin for this top wave.
There goes Huhi.
Oh, the flash engage. Veritas is in range, so the engage happens. Huhi. Zhonya's just in time. Heaven time forced run away, though, and a great equalizer. The 3 kills picked up. This dive not working too well. Nian and Chunky Fresh alone inside the base. Can they 2v4? The Hex comes in. The damage output, the crit, and this dive, oh my god, did it fail.
That's what Veritas can do when you leave him alone. They couldn't reach him. This is a composition that wants to dive you, but also pick their fight, and they picked the wrong one.
Why would you dive with a team like this? Such a very awkward way to give an advantage back into Final 5. The equalizer was so immaculate.
Big thing is Rule 18 gets the polymorph on Huhi here. Comes in, boom, polymorph. Look at all this damage that comes across on him. And he almost drops. He's forced to Zhonya's, and then Chunky Fresh and Niantanso are off on the left. So far away from Veritas, who gets the wild growth. The exhaust comes out, so Niantanso has to run away, and he's running towards Chunky Fresh, which isn't safety anymore. Rule 18 really on top of those polymorphs, hitting the right target at the right moment that entire fight. 5 for 1. And Final 5 are back in this.
That's what we talked about 3 minutes ago. You don't want to give the chance for Final 5 to catch up. They, to be fair, are still down 7,500 gold. But you guys have looked at your match histories before. You get in those games and you're like, yeah, the gold lead was like 12K, and then it goes all the way down and the blue team wins suddenly. Fusion cannot let this happen to themselves. Now they still, again, hold very big leads. 4-item AD carry means Niantatsu can single-handedly destroy all of Final 5. If Fusion were all tanks plus Nian, they'd probably still win team fights. So F5 do have to be scary.
Yeah, that's very true. But I think Rule 18 in the bottom lane just came up really big there. Rule 18 had a very terrible KDA back in the expansion tournament, and when members of Final 5 were getting replaced, the community was really questioning why Rule 18 wasn't replaced. He brings a lot to this team in terms of spirit and personality. He's the one who's facilitating it, but look at this.
On a ward, stunned, rooted, forced to Zhonya's right in front of Lissandra. Lulu gets him out of the fight for now. Heaven Time joins the battle. Equalizer on everyone. Graves ult as well. It's a whole bunch of damage, but guess what? Fusion are ahead, and they survived the early encounter. In the back line, Rumble goes down 3 for 0 so far. I can't see Final 5 turning it back around, and that means Baron and then likely an inhibitor.
That was a trickle-in fight there, and Gate was standing on a ward, immediately engaged on. And that's a big mistake that could cost you the game this far in.
Fusion, wow, they took that fight at the same time a giant wave was pushing down the bot lane. These guys actually could have potentially pushed instead, but they choose Baron, and they will, looks like, shove a wave and quickly recall and re-siege, using that team fight win just as an extra Baron buff to make this short-range team kill a base.
Yeah, the Baron is guaranteed. Their base was not entirely guaranteed, so the risk was still there, so they took the one with less risk.
True that. And as long as they don't do any of those dumb dives anymore, Fusion should still be able to close this game out.
But like I was saying, Rule 18, he was really on top of it in that previous fight. And when they're behind, they kind of look to him for morale.
Yeah.
Right? He has a lot of intangibles outside of the game. He's the one who's like calling for people's teleport timers and being like, all right, bottom lane, what do you want to do? Jungler, what are you looking to do? Constantly talking to his team. He may not be the main shot caller, but he's definitely somebody who gets that ball rolling.
And he's a facilitator, and it keeps Final 5 focused on the objectives at hand. But right now, the objective at hand is Dragon number 3 for Fusion. I want to say it's actually number 4 for them.
It's 4 for them.
Yeah, okay.
They're sitting on 3.
The display in the top left corner is wrong. They do have 3 buffs on each of their champions here.
This will be their 4th Dragon of the game for them on Fusion's side. They can't really do anything about this. Chunky Fresh just sitting in that bottom lane, making sure that it's still pushed up with his Baron buff. And Fusion have a ton going for them right now. The gold lead, the fact that they are at 4 dragons, the threat of a 5th, they have a Baron buff up. Like you said, they just have to not dive again like they did previously.
Yeah. Right now they're taking all the objectives off the map. Okay, blue buff goes away, red buff goes away, and many of the big jungle camps they can think of go away. So even if they do lose a team fight, with all the waves pushed in, Final 5 cannot gain anything if they were to win a fight. If that last catastrophic dive, by the way, nothing happened to them. They didn't lose anything.
They just got some gold and they stopped the pressure because of the inhibitor bottom. They lost it again. Now those waves, it's basically a repeat of where we were a couple minutes ago. And Fusion get another chance to not make the same mistake.
What they are doing is something a little bit smarter. Bot lane's auto-pushing. They are sending Aurelia mid this time with Baron buff, and they have really good wards to watch all of the jungle exits of Final 5, to watch for flanks, to make sure ward control stays up even if they do die. And now we're going to see the multi-pronged assault. Rux is bot lane holding a wave. Someone has to come mid lane very soon to hold this one that Aurelia is pushing in. There's the ping, the blue ping, and they're going to send Graves over to defend it. We'll see if Fusion rotates back and forth to push these waves down. They actually could have brought their AD carry in towards that side. Chunky Fresh will recall for GA and teleport back in.
He's looking for it.
Okay, maybe not just yet.
Still looking for it.
How afraid Nian is. He's going to go in. Look at that. Just the threat of gate means he gets 2 auto attacks and backs right back off.
Still have that bottom wave pushing in, and Chunky Fresh in that middle lane, causing the pressure, shoving the waves up. Final 5, they have to be absolutely perfect here with the way they handle this fight. But Fusion, they can't get too cocky either.
Of course they can't. I want to see an Ohm Wrecker. That's how you make the dive happen here, is you go in without the turret helping you.
Ohm Wrecker, Banner of Command, either of those.
Actually, yeah. You have no way of, you have no long-range physical damage here on the Final 5 lineup. So a spell immune thing, actually you can see again, Niantatsu loses most of his health bar. the short-range lineup, bad at sieging. They might just want to play for Dragon 5 at this point because they can see how little progress they're gaining. The Baron buff didn't gain them literally anything. No turrets were picked up over the entirety of Baron buff. Chunky Fresh, though, just with the health lead, is able to push down mid, though, because no one can stop him. The big Aurelia is the win condition here, and now another inhibitor is open.
Yeah, Chunky Fresh, level 18, much higher than everybody else on Final 5 at this point. 2 up on Rux, still. And Aurelia with that much gold. You speak about power troughs, he's feeling the spike right now.
Yep. He's stayed ahead all game long, has remained a very scary damage threat. Elixir of Iron comes in to join his Guardian Angel, meaning even more tenacity for fun old Aurelia.
You basically can't CC him at all at this point.
Not really.
Because all of that stacks multiplicatively.
Now, yeah, 5.2.
Yeah. So Iron on top of his passive, on top of his Merc Treads.
Probably at like 70% tenacity at this point.
And if he's in a team fight?
That's what I was, yeah, I think it's around
people?
that with, well, it stops at 3. But.
Yeah. CC him for 3 seconds, you're really getting him for 1. Less than a second.
Yeah. All right, let's see. Scuttler controlled. Dragon, though, still more than 2 minutes away. Baron similar here. But Dragon 5 and Baron will coincide. Fusion could use that to make the siege just a little bit better. Keep in mind, any damage dealt will trigger the true damage from Dragon 5. So like Sivir Ricochet, a John Tornado, Lissandra Q, or Aurelia R will tick your opponents down and let you try to push just a little bit more. Time doing what he can to clear wards, but Fusion are going to regroup for mid again.
Lots of GAs here, though. Niantanso purchases his own. So this Fusion lineup is looking like it's a team that wants to dive you. They're looking to not be punished for dives that are not optimal. So if they dive you, they still have 2 more lives on 2 people who are trying to carry this game and take turrets.
So the fear is still there. Mid and bot inhibitors, though. Open, respawned, up for the taking. 1.5 minutes for both Dragon 5 and Baron buff for Fusion. Will they go for the base? Will they go for just the ward control and the map control until those respawn? My vote would be for the latter, but you never know. Nian doesn't even want to ricochet the waves down. You can see he's looking more for champions to harass. Trying to bait the enemy team outside the base with the minion wave there. Veritas' wave clearing. He's actually on 3 items. Goes for Ruin King over Bloodthirster as his item choice. It will do a little bit more damage auto attack wise.
Who he? Sitting on the side.
Yeah, he wants the engage. I mean, if they do get the battle started, they're still up 12k. They would win an outright 5-on-5, just not inside the base with that position.
Diving turrets is not good at all.
Final 5 without the support right now. Lulu's kind of far away, but thanks to Rek'Sai, they can walk around the map.
Yeah, they're weighing their options. Baron is almost up. Dragon 5 is an option that's on the table very shortly. And all they really have to worry about is if they put themselves in a position where Final 5 have better terrain advantage, right? That they have their base turrets, that they have something else going for them. Because right now, everything's in favor of Fusion.
All right, and they're going to start Baron right off the respawn. In fact, Final 5 nowhere to be seen. They were dealing with a mid lane wave that was pushed earlier, and there was no contest for this Baron buff here. Goes down at 43 minutes to Fusion. Dragons in 10 seconds. Both these buffs will last 3 minutes long, and so you've got roughly 2.5 to do everything for Fusion. Off they go. Down to the side of this map. Final 5 will push the wave out, but does it really even matter? In fact, there's a giant wave top right now. Final 5 can maybe go for a push as payment for a Dragon, or will they even try to stop Dragon 5? It's going to be too late if they want it to. There's the bonus, and there's the engage. Rux comes into this fight. Gate very low off the start of it. Memo's got to be careful too. Big ult from Graves and Trance is low, but the Dragon buff means so much power. Veritas getting chased out by Chunky Fresh. Rux can only do so much, and the kills start coming through. 4 already. Only having time alive. Fusion should be able to easily close this game out now.
You have all the neutral objective steroids, and they're just going to power through them. 5-0 for Fusion.
Well, they've got to take down this inhibitor first, but that's going to be a surrender all the same. 44 minutes. Fusion do get vengeance, and they split the series 1-1.
Really controlled game by them. They played a completely different style than yesterday. They didn't let the bot lane get out of control. They had that advantage from CS from the get-go for Nian. And they just pushed that further and further over Veritas and all of Final 5.
Yeah, massive props to that Fusion 2-on-2. I came in saying, I don't know if they really want to do that. I was wrong. That 2-on-2 was pretty freaking potent. Nian did a great job alongside Trance. Those two put up a great performance. They won themselves that game pretty hard here. 8-2 and 16 for Nian. Of his team's 24, he was part of 24 of his team's 27 kills. Only 2 of his team's 13 deaths. We said he had to step up in this match. The team had to do well. That happened. Trance did the same at 0-2 and 23. Those guys made that team comp work. I will credit them, or I will criticize them for that one dive in the top lane, but thankfully they were far enough ahead that it didn't matter.
Yeah, when you're that far ahead, you kind of get some wiggle room to make big mistakes like that.
Yeah.
That you otherwise wouldn't have the game completely flipped on you for. So
Right.
at that point in the end, they're controlling everything on the map. It's kind of like when you're a shot caller, you're like, I have so many things that I want to do, and I get to do all of them.
Yeah.
I get to siege the base, I get to take the dragon, I get to take the baron, and you don't really have to make any calls that are risky at that point. You're kind of like, they can't contest it here. And then it's like Gate standing in a bush, and we get complete control over everything.
Yeah.
It's really just it's a wet dream there for a shot caller.
Yeah,
You're just like, the map is mine.
The map was in the end. He got to do what he wanted. That said, though, a fully short-range team composition meant that actually sieging was very difficult. The only ways they got into the base was either off of a team fight and an ace, or off of an out-rotation, or off of Chunky Fresh as being too tanky to take down in his solo push. So the siege, I think, may be a misfire. If it was there maybe to hold pressure on the map to keep the waves pushed in, but as an actual win condition, sieging did not seem to be very good for Fusion. But that's fine. They did other things good.
Yeah, it's a very dive-heavy composition.
Yeah.
So that's what they ended up doing. It bit him in the foot one time.
Yeah.
And then they just went back to the drawing board and played it very methodically from there.
Yeah, well, thankfully,